Hey everybody, it's Wahome from Wahome Gitonga Coaching. Welcome to another episode of Business Conversation Interviews. Hope you all had an amazing week. So, Business Conversation Interviews where we interview the most successful people from across various industries, from coaches, entrepreneurs, business owners, influencers, doctors, and a variety of successful people. Today we're lucky to have Pete Fry, and Pete Fry is one of the top UK coaches, specializing in elite performance and are helping people to overcome the mindset. And Pete's going to be sharing with us his wisdom and key insights into how to master your performance, increase your confidence, and also how to create a winning mindset. So without further ado, let me welcome Pete. Hi, Pete.
There we go.
Finally,
Finally.
after all these technical issues, finally get there.
We got there. How are we doing?
I'm good, and you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Good.
Good to have you on.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So let's start off with the first question.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about yourself. What is your background and how did you get into your business?
My background in coaching is through sport coaching, basically. So I started off coaching in the fitness industry. And from there, I started working more in sport and with sport performance, but also long-term injury rehab as well. And what I came to realize was a lot of my clients' results was about mindset, and that got me really interested in personal coaching. So just went from there, really.
Okay. So what was it? What was your idea behind your business, and what was it so much about mindset that attracted you to go down that route in coaching?
Well, the idea really was that working with kind of a wide array of clients in fitness and sport, whether it was sports performance and helping people to kind of get that edge, or whether it was helping people recover from a long-term injury or after surgery, it was confidence that was the thing that was made the biggest difference to my client's success. And so that's what got me really interested. And my own background from within personal development, for the last 20 years basically has been the same journey for myself. So it all kind of tied in nicely together. So that's what really made me think that's what I need to do with it.
Okay. And so what's been the biggest challenge that you personally faced when you started the business? And what was the key in terms of helping you to overcome that challenge?
I think with any business, the biggest challenge is really at the start is understanding your customers first. From a long-term injury. Oh, that was weird. I had a bit of an echo then. Yeah, I think it's really to do with understanding your customer first, which fortunately I'd had a bit of experience with. And so I think a lot of the time it's very easy to build something and then hope people are going to, take you up on your offer. But I think if you can understand what people want first, then I think it's relatively, well, not easy, but certainly straightforward to start helping people.
Yeah, I like that. I think it is the key of being able to understand, as you're saying, what your client wants, what the market, and also link it back to your skills and abilities of what you can offer that can then meet a need, a desire, or a pain. So yeah, I think what you said that's quite useful for people to know. And so, what is the unique skill that's really helped you just personally to become so successful?
I think for me, from coaching, and it took me a while because I've been running my own business probably since 2004, 2005. Really, it's understanding people and situations quite quickly is the thing that made coaching definitely the most successful thing that I've done. And understanding people's problems, understanding a situation quickly. So I think that's the thing that's helped me kind of get where I am.
And what are kind of your key ways you go about being able to understand people so quickly that enables you to do that? Because obviously not a lot of people are able to do that. So what is that? How are you able to do that?
I think I've always been interested in it. And I remember I'm 40 now, but I remember in my early 20s, getting quite interested in how the mind works. And I've always just had this kind of this natural sort of inquisition around that sort of stuff. And actually, I found out quite recently that my great grandmother wrote a book on the science of mind in 1977. So it's obviously something that runs in the family. And she was like lecturing into her 90s, like flying to America, and which was like, back then was pretty crazy. But yeah, it's just a natural thing I've had. And I think just having a genuine interest in it, I think you learn. And I've studied a lot, you read a lot about, personality and like psychology and all this kind of stuff. And I'm definitely not a psychologist, but I'm definitely interested in it. And I think if you want to help people, I think if you've got a genuine interest in helping people, then having a natural kind of inquisitiveness about people goes naturally with that as well. Because if you want to help someone, you have to understand where they are.
Yes, so true. Definitely true. Yeah, I think it is being able to have that empathy as well.
Yeah.
People can really understand where they're coming from, and that even if you might not have been through it yourself, you can relate to it and understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, what advice would you give to someone who is thinking of starting a practice or business, but they're just too scared to make that first step and they keep procrastinating?
Just do it. Just get out there and do it. The saying goes, ready, it's not ready, aim, fire. It's ready, fire, aim, right? Just get something out there, get it started. And, if you've got good intentions, I think it doesn't matter what you do, you'll always end up in a good place. I think if you start a business to make money, you'll fail. But I think if you start a business to make a difference, you'll succeed in the long run if you carry on with it.
That's like such a good point. I think it is true, like the businesses that are out there to make a difference and add lots of value, they're the ones that make it. And people just after quick money tend to struggle along the way or lose motivation when they face that first hurdle and earning the money.
Yeah, that's right. And I think if you're out there to make money, you're not really focused on the customer, you're focused on yourself, and if you're focused on the customer, then and you have the customer's genuine interest or your client's interests at heart, then actually the money is kind of secondary. But the more you can help them, the more of that stuff you make anyway. But it does, it's a function of how much you give.
Yeah, definitely agree with you there. So what are the most common reasons why people come to you for coaching, and how can you help people?
Confidence, basically. So whatever the reason that people have a knock of confidence, is a lot of professional stuff. So yeah, if people have been through, a hard time at work for a specific amount of time, it seems to be, it's not something that happens overnight for sure. It's one of these things that's underlying. And I think people get to a point where they're like, do you know what? I really need to work on this, because it becomes obvious that that's the problem. Sometimes the problem isn't always obvious, but I think, yeah, it's one of those things that creeps up on you. And then over the years, I think it makes itself more obvious.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. I think like a lot of times, like the confidence is kind of like the surface level, and it's normally like the low self-esteem or the underlying issues that people are really looking to work around and actually remove, because you can do something confidently, but if you have issues of you're unworthy, that's still going to be there unless you really address it. So it also recently, so a recent survey of 9,000 workers across UK, looking at various industries, and it was done by a company called UK Workplace. They found that 70% of women suffer from low confidence, and 60% of men suffer low confidence. Why do you feel that so many people nowadays are struggling with low confidence? And that number could be even more.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I suppose you have to define what low confidence is first, really. I think if you define low confidence as perhaps not being happy where you are and not feeling like you can do more than you can, then sure, that's definitely a thing. I think there are certain industries where they're very kind of cutthroat, and every opportunity you're made to feel like you're just about surviving in there, and that's obviously no good for your confidence. But yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to self-belief, and that comes from your life and the experiences you've had.
Yeah, that's true. So what would you advise someone who was suffering low self-esteem and looking to overcome this?
Well, I think self-esteem is an interesting one. You have to esteem something is to bring something value, and so self-esteem is all about bringing value to yourself. And however that might be putting yourself first more than you do. It might be more the confidence side of self-esteem, which is more about taking action towards the things that you want. And if you don't know what that is, maybe you need to do a bit of soul searching and figure out the things that you actually want in your life. But ultimately, it's prioritizing your goals and yourself, not in a selfish way, but in a way that helps you to kind of, fill up your own cup, if you like. What they say, you can't give from an empty cup, right? You gotta. It's not selfish to put yourself first. And I think a lot of the time there is definitely certain kinds of people as well that often put other people's other people before themselves, and other people's opinions before their own, which is not necessarily a great thing. So I think you need to, with self-esteem, is finding where that kind of leak is.
And so what advice would you give to someone who's maybe in a relationship or with a family members who struggle to put themselves first and always find that they're putting their family members or their partner in their own needs, and they find it hard to communicate their needs?
I think it's always best to remember that if you're the kind of person that likes to serve people, and likes to be there for other people, because I believe that humans are fundamentally good people. We are good natured beings, and I think to be the most service, you have to make sure that you are the best that you can be yourself first. To be your best, you need to look after yourself first. And they say in airplanes, when the oxygen masks come down, they say to put your own on first, because if you haven't got your own on, you're not gonna be able to help anybody else. And I think you need to figure out what your bare minimum is for looking after yourself, and stick to that, because if you can't look after yourself, you're not gonna be able to look after anybody else.
I think you're right there about having the awareness of yourself. I think that's a really good point there. And so this is kind of goes on to maybe the next question as well. So what do you think is the key to having deep fulfillment in life? And why do you feel that people struggle to have that?
That's an interesting question. So fulfillment, I mean, that's way up there in the hierarchy of needs. The whole self-actualization, and that's when you've got everything else sorted out. You got your physiological needs met, and you got your kind of family and relationships, and then your esteem needs, and then you get to the kind of fulfillment is long-term happiness, success, and freedom, I think. And mastering your success is all about mastering your intellect, whether it's creative or more logical, and mastering your freedom is all about making decisions, I think. And I think fulfillment comes from I think the more spiritual people would say connecting to source, which I agree with. You get to the thing that when you're doing the right thing. I was on a coaching call it's about an hour ago actually, and it's about sometimes you do things in your career because you think it's like, right, this is the next step, because that's what my career path says, and you go for that and you get that achievement, if you like, and you get the confidence. But then actually, if it's not completely in line with who you are, there'll always be something that feels a little off. There'll always be something that you don't feel quite like you're doing the right thing. And I think following your intuition is really important in those times.
I really like that. So why do you feel that so many people kind of struggle with having the right mindset to achieve high performing goals?
I think fear of judgment is a big thing. I think indexing too heavily on what other people think of you, maybe not going for things because of what people think of you, and maybe doing the things that people expect you to do. So living up to other people's expectations rather than your own, and maybe being easily kind of dissuaded by failure as well. So dwelling too much on mistakes, or being afraid of making mistakes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think I tend to find that a lot of people get stuck on comparing themselves to others, judging their success by what someone else is achieving. And they get distracted from their own results. And it's never enough, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that works both sides of that, because you could compare yourself to somebody and think, oh, I'm never going to be as good as that person, or you could compare yourself to somebody and think, I'm better than that person. And they're two sides of the same coin, and neither are productive.
That's definitely true. So what advice would you give to someone who's struggling with low productivity and they're looking to raise their performance in the workplace?
Yeah, productivity is interesting, especially in this day and age. You know, we got so many distractions. It's so noisy out there. I think lockdown has helped actually in that respect. It's quietened things down quite a lot. I've definitely noticed it myself, and a lot of my clients have as well. But yeah, productivity. I mean, we can only focus on one thing at a time. The human mind can only concentrate on one thing at a time. If you're multitasking, you're just switching between tasks really quickly. Which is not great for productivity. So for focus, it's like you have to just get good at focusing on one thing, which is, you know, a challenge sometimes for sure. But focus blocks of time are really good if you can do it, switching off distractions. And sometimes it's discipline, you know, it's the discipline to turn Facebook off or to turn your phone off, not check your emails. Because I think a lot of the times we're driven to do things impulsively, sometimes because of boredom or stress. You know, we've all got our little compulsive behaviors that we do. You know, if you get stressed, I often get hungry if I'm stressed, and I'm not hungry, I'm just stressed. So I try not to eat.
That's so true. I think it is, you're right, that discipline is the hardest thing. Like to have that discipline to say, yeah, I'm not going to look at my phone this evening.
Well, yeah, until I get this done, I'm going to write this article or whatever you're doing, and I'm not going to look at my phone because, you know, what's the worst that's going to happen in that time?
Yes, totally. I totally agree with you. So if someone came to you and they said they're struggling with a past experience, whether it's like a bad relationship or they've, you know, failed to get promotion and that's really stopping them, like what advice would you give to someone in order to let go of that experience and then move forward?
Well, I think becoming present is really important because, you know, we can't change the past. The past is gone. Right. And we can't directly affect the future either. We can indirectly affect it by what we do now, but becoming more present is really, really important because when you are present, you realize when you're spending time in the past and, you know, and bring yourself back into the present moment and then deciding to take action and act for, you know, towards what you want. But if you spend time in the future, it's the same. You know, if you spend time in the future negatively, you're worrying. And if you spend time in the future, like positively, that's great. But it's also, you know, no action will just mean you're a daydreamer. So spending time in the past might be guilt, or it might be, you know, like guilt is a past emotion. Anxiety is a future emotion. Worry is a future emotion where you're still functioning. But bringing yourself present helps you to decide what you're doing right now, because that's really the only thing you have is this present moment.
And so what advice would you give to someone to become more present? Like what would your two best tips would be for someone who's looking to get more present?
There's lots of things. Some people like meditation, mindfulness, all of these practices that are, you know, that are quite popular. I meditate every morning, and there's some great exercises that you can do. Just, you know, just feel your body. Just, you know, bring your attention to your feet. What do your feet feel like now? You know, and what do your hands feel like now? Like, feel them. You know, all these little things like that, and they just help you to kind of realize that actually there's a lot more going on right now than you realize. You know, just listen. You know, like what can you hear? If we, like, you know, not on this call now, but if you can listen around you, you know, helps to just bring you back. And I think sometimes catching yourself in the act of living in the past or the future is a good thing.
I think that's a very good tip. I mean, I meditate as well in the morning, so I can definitely adhere to the idea that it's a great practice to help you center and actually be present to what's going on.
Absolutely, yeah.
So in a recent Cosmopolitan magazine, they found that the number one reason for breakdown in relationships, now this could be business relationships or personal relationships, was communication. How important do you feel communication is, and what tips would you give to people in order to become more strong in their communication language and have more impactful relationships?
Yeah, the biggest tip I would give about communication is that most of it doesn't land the way that you intend it to. Right. So whatever you think you're saying is probably not how somebody's going to receive it. They might get the gist of it, but generally speaking, like the words are one thing, and obviously the voice tone and all that stuff is really important. But yeah, you need to this is where it comes down to understanding people. Some people like to hear things, some people like to watch things, some people like to do things to understand them. But generally speaking, if you consider that most communication misses, it makes you a lot more thoughtful about the way that you communicate.
Like that. And why do you think that a lot of people right now are struggling to, really create a life of meaning and purpose and actually have direction in life to achieve high results?
I think it comes back to what you said earlier about being in fear of what other people think. Living life by other people's standards rather than your own. And I think setting your own standards, your own values, and your own boundaries, and then deciding to act yourself, to do the things that you want to do in a way that is, that makes you feel like you're doing the right thing for you.
Reminds me of Will, like I read like a while back in a magazine, they were talking about, when you go for your car and you get an MOT, and you should have like a lifestyle MOT, like at the end of the month or at the year, where you just look at your whole life and think like, am I reaching my goals? Am I happy? All those kind of things. And like people should be looking to look at, really reflect on how their life has gone for the last year on a personal level. Because then that would give you the clarity to then move forward.
Yeah, it'd be quite interesting if you set some goals and then 12 months later you look back at them and go, what was I thinking back in July 2019? What were my goals and where am I now? And I think having that, it's that accountability with yourself, isn't it, really?
Definitely. And so during difficult periods like we're experiencing now with COVID and the whole racial equalities issues, like what are your two best tips that allow you to stay motivated that you can then share with people watching?
Yeah, that's a big one. It's there's a lot of attention in the world now, and I think the stuff that at the moment that's happening at the moment, people are spending a lot more time on social media, which is great in some ways because there's a lot more, people are getting to see about stuff and hear about stuff that they just wouldn't have otherwise have seen about. And obviously, the way that things are in the world is, there's a lot of pain in the world and there's a lot of suffering in the world. And I think social media is good for spreading that around, the information that otherwise, you're not going to know. There's so much that's come out now about the history of the UK and the history of America and all this kind of stuff that people just didn't know about, right? And if it wasn't for social media, they still wouldn't know about it.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Like social media is good, and I think at the same time, like I found that watching too much social media, or what can also be like, I found it was a bit demotivating, especially with the constant, as you're getting like constant things about COVID, about race equality, things that you can't really control. And of course, when you're watching this constantly, reading this constantly, it then starts affecting your mindset, and you start feeling down how the world is. And I think like I tend to find that limiting my time in that was a great thing to do, especially during this lockdown, to stay motivated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think right at the start of lockdown, I think I had the TV on, once a day for the news. And now it's like, maybe a headline, but that's it. It's so distracting, and I remember whenever there's something that's like going on in the news that's a little bit exciting, you go, oh, just check what the latest on that is. It's so distracting. It's it's terrible, really. So for your own productivity and for your own peace of mind, absolutely limit news to a bare minimum is my advice.
Yeah, that's good advice. So we know what you're really good at. What's one habit or activity you're not very good at in your personal life?
Probably keeping up with family as much as I could. Probably I do. I definitely keep in touch with my family, but I think that's probably the side. It's like when you run your own business, you do a lot of work, and you perhaps don't put as much time aside as you could. So that's definitely an area that I could be better at.
I think we're all like that. So like having that family time.
Yeah.
So next question, two questions in one really. So the first part is what's next for you in terms of your business and your practice, and then the second part, is how can people reach you to work with you? What kind of social media platforms are you on? If you can just be specific around that, and what's your website so we can contact you to work with you?
Yeah, sure. So, well, my website is petefry.co.uk, petefry.co.uk. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. The Pete Fry is my handle, so ThePetefry. Yeah, you can find me there. There's a free ebook on my website you can download about confidence, which gives my basic model of confidence, which is what I use with all my clients and myself. So hopefully that's of value. What's next is I'm going to be doing some weekly webinars, basically, for my, for anybody that wants to jump on, which is going to be a once a week. I'll teach on a topic. And so people that are interested in improving their confidence and their self-esteem, and they want to start performing better, then it'll just be some, information for them to, try out and use these coaching methods, because there's quite a lot of interest in this area, which means there's quite a lot of good to be done, quite a lot of help to be given. So hopefully I'll be able to give some of that. Yeah, I think that's it, really.
Yeah, perfect. So I say to everyone watching, or who's going to watch later as well, that to reach out to Pete and work with him, because you are going to get lots of good results from him, and you'll start to see a massive difference in your confidence and in your performance. And the final question: what's one final piece of advice you want to give to people in terms of, increasing their performance or increasing their confidence?
Just take action. Just do it. There's all of these things. So it often takes us a lot of time to get around to doing all of the prep work that we need to do, and the project that we want to start, and the, whatever it is, the business or the podcast or the new initiative at work that you want to bring out. It takes us years sometimes to get around to doing that. And then you do all the prep work, and that takes the time. But then there comes a moment where you've just got to do it, right? You've got to press share, or you've got to, just have that conversation, or you've just got to make a decision to go and do it. That's the moment to focus on. That's the moment to get, because when that decision comes, that's when you've got to use courage and step up. And that's where you get all the confidence back in return, when you get through that moment. So yeah, look for that moment and go through it.
That's very good advice. I think for a lot of people, they do struggle with taking action, and making sure that they actually are following through. And
right.
Easily fall procrastination.
Yeah, it's great. All the prep work's great, and talking about it is great, but you got to do it. You got the thing that you're scared of, just do that, and you'll be fine. Fear is a instinctive thing that we all have, and it's designed to keep us alive, but we don't really need it anymore so much. We're not physically in danger very often, and hopefully never. But there's still a lot of fear around, and the amount of fear we experience vastly outweighs the amount of physical danger that we're in. So realize that and just push through it.
I love that. It's really good advice. So thanks, Pete. It's been a real pleasure to have you on this tonight to interview you. And everyone else watching, there will be more business conversation interviews coming up, so keep an eye out for those. Otherwise, Pete, we wish you the best of luck with your practice, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. We also wish you have a good evening, and we'll speak soon.
Great. Thanks, Wahome. It's been great being here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
See you soon. Bye now.
Bye-bye.